Quantum science is also showing us that everything is connected, and these insights are aligned with ancient spiritual teaching. We have taken ourselves further and further away from that deep truth in many ways. And so we don't even realize that this field of energy is here. Always, you are pure consciousness. And what we have to do is get the mind and the body and the breath working back together so that the mind can listen to the body. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Art of Awakening. I am your host, Dr. Sue Morter. Join me today as we explore the science of consciousness and brainwaves and how they relate to each other. So, first of all, what is consciousness in the first place? And in terms of quantum science, what we know is that everything is consciousness. That is actually what quantum science is teaching us. So, everything that is based on energy, is built on energy, and that energy is awake. So we are here as a pure state of consciousness peering into this world, into this reality, into this realm, and what we're seeing and interacting with is also consciousness at its highest level. And so when we start to think about life and how things are going, it's so important for us to realize that we are contributing to the experience that we're having based upon the filtering system that we have put in place inside of our own prejudice, our own beliefs, our own ideas of who we are and what's going on. So today we want to kind of peel that back a little bit and make it a little bit more user-friendly so that we can actually understand what it is that science is sharing with us. So quantum science is also showing us that everything is connected, and these insights are aligned with ancient spiritual teachings as well, that everything is one big being, is what the ancient spiritual teachings would teach, that the whole thing is one presence, and the aspects of nature were contributing to all other aspects of nature, and that you always operated in tandem with that in mind. And by doing so, you operated in flow, and it allowed you to exist in peace and harmony in life. And what quantum science is showing us is that, turns out that was true. All those years ago, we could have just kept listening. Instead of having this better idea through all the inventions and the advents of our scientific community, we have taken ourselves further and further away from that deep truth in many ways. And now what quantum science, the new sciences, are showing us is that we can make our way back to this deep interconnectedness. And it's important when it comes to us realizing how we can play a role, how we can have an effect on the outcomes in our lives. And so this whole idea of a unified quantum field, a unified field of energy, supports everything that we're saying. But let me just say a little bit about what that is. If you took all of the energies in all of creation, you put them together, and you didn't separate them out in any sort of specific gatherings or any specific projects at all, you just released all of that, the energy that would be present is this unified field. It's the backdrop of everything. So think about this smorgasbord that is everything you would ever want, would ever imagine having on this smorgasbord of foods to eat, for instance. And there was so much there that there was nothing missing. Everything was there. So when someone says, well, what's your favorite? You're like, oh, it's just too much. I just can't even tell you. There was just so much that was so great. That's kind of how the unified field is. It's like too much to perceive because everything is there. There's nothing missing. So we know cold because of the absence of heat, and we know dark because of the absence of light. And when there's nothing absent, there's nothing for our senses to pick up on in the ways that we've been trained to use them. And so we don't even realize that this field of energy is here always. We don't sense it and perceive it because it's full. There's nothing missing. There's no point of contrast in it. And so what we are in right here in the third dimension, in physical form, in the physical reality, is that we've compressed ourselves as that infinite field into this world of relativity. We've compressed into the idea that we can see different aspects, different components of the whole. It's sort of like this. If you had a plate glass window and you could see right through it, there's nothing there. And if you went up and pushed on that window, if it's tempered glass, you push on it enough and it shatters into a million tiny pieces, billions of tiny pieces. All right. And so now you can see the pieces of this unified field. So if the plate glass window is the unified field and we compress it or we put pressure on it, it fractures into looking like there's a lot of different parts here. There's a lot of different pieces to the wholeness. And that's what we are. We are those tiny little pieces on that big plate glass window. So it's kind of an interesting concept to think about it that way. But the significance of this extends beyond the physical realm. It moves us into our understanding of our connectedness and our belongingness. And so the higher the level of consciousness that we are dialing into, the more closely related to the whole big plate glass window or the whole big unified field of consciousness we can become. So then people want to know, well, how do I measure my consciousness? How do I know how I'm doing? How do I know if I'm doing a good job at being a super conscious individual? How do I know if I'm raising or ascending my vibration or my frequency that so many people are speaking about? And the biggest thing that I want us to realize is that consciousness exists before the physical form exists. You exist before the physical form exists. Now, as crazy as this might sound, I have lucid memory of choosing to become. I was conscious and lucid before I ever chose to incarnate. And then I have memory of these vast, massive energies coming together in a cataclysmic sort of way in this huge, explosive moment. And all of a sudden, I am descending. I'm like dropping and dropping and dropping, as if I'm in some ride at Disneyland where the elevator drops out from under you and you're dropping down an elevator shaft. And I was descending and descending and descending and descending and dropping. And I landed in the womb, literally just in the womb. Lucid memory of it, just like it was yesterday. And it's kind of an odd thing to share with you because maybe we just met. I don't know. But here's what I know. It is a very real thing that consciousness exists before and after the physical realm. Spirituality has been teaching us this forever. You're an eternal being. You do not die. You are not born. You actually come into this existence and then you move into another one and another one and another one. And spirituality has been trying to remind us of that, and now quantum science is telling us that the whole of reality is based in consciousness, that everything is that. So we have access to being awake and being lucid far beyond having a body and having a brain and having the nervous system and all these things that we're used to thinking about. So why contemplate such things? Because when you understand that you're an eternal being, that you're energy, that you're made of energy and energy cannot be created or destroyed, it sort of takes the pressure off. It's like, it's okay. You're fine. You don't have to act as if your life depends on getting that promotion or if your life depends on finding that life partner or the things that we get so entangled in. If we knew that we're eternal and it's okay, there's plenty of time to organize and to flow and to allow things to align and to integrate so that we can be empowered and clear and operating on all cylinders all the time. And so it's valuable for us to know and to contemplate these things and to wake up to a bigger version of who we are, because when we're sequestered into being a 5-sensory individual that is dependent on your 5 senses to determine if you're okay or not, chances are you're going to be looking to the outer world all the time to be evaluated and to see how you measure up and to see how you fit in. All the while you're stealing from the soulful self one more breath every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It adds up to an empty life. Even though you can have a flash in the pan and you can be excited about a new project or you can take on this new thing always, but underneath it all, are you fulfilled? Underneath all those accomplishments, are you deeply, deeply knowing and joyful that all is well? Are you able to engage as if that's true, that you are an eternal being? As if we're not able to engage that way, we get caught up in, well, what is What is science telling me? How can I measure? What's my blood pressure? What's my heart rate? What are my brain waves doing? How do I figure out if I'm okay or not? The first thing to do is to decide that you're okay. The next thing to do is to breathe as if it's true. And what would that be like? Would it change your breath right now if you were to start breathing right now as if everything is fine? Everything is in divine order. The only thing that is happening here is the unfoldment of your magnificence and a life that is designed to awaken you to your majesty, truly to your majestic version of you, to an empowered version of you that loves disentangling arguments and loves moving into problematic situations and showing that they can dissolve. If you pour enough love into it, if you breathe enough, if you're present enough, you see that it never needed to be so entangled in the first place. And so we live in a culture that is very oriented around testing our brainwaves and testing our chemistries, our blood tests and our pHs and all kinds of ways to evaluate. How am I doing? How am I doing? And all of those tests will improve if we decide that we're doing really well and that we mean it and that we're dropping down inside of ourselves and breathing like we mean it and sitting down inside of the body and allowing it to be comfortable. Because by true design, it's very comfortable. So if you're not experiencing comfort in your body, then you're doing some things and you're contorting the energy field in such a way that it's interfering not only with your comfort level physically, it's also interfering with your ability to achieve the things that you want to achieve. It's interfering with your success. It's interfering with your intimacy. It's interfering with your forgivingness and your ability to begin again. It's interfering with and causing you to hold on to grudges because it gives you something to hold on to because you don't know who you are without it under those circumstances. And so, time out. Let's change that up. Let's allow this to be something bigger. So, we're always interested in our brainwaves and how it's related to consciousness in particular because it's a way of measuring activity in the nervous system, but it isn't measuring your consciousness, but it is measuring how you are consciously managing your mind. If you consciously manage your mind in a certain way, your brainwaves will change and they will move in a direction that will allow more of the universe to pour through you without interruption. It will allow more of the rising soulful self to express outwardly without being interfered with or suppressed again because you got too afraid to speak your truth or to step into something because you really didn't know quite yet who you are in this situation. That's what we're here figuring out, right? We're building circuits to learn how to operate as the soulful self inside of all things awakening. And so different brainwave states affect our experience of our consciousness. Our consciousness is whole and complete, period. But the way our brain is acting is determined by how we operate our mind, and the way we operate our mind will force the brain to function in different vibrational frequencies, whether it's gamma or beta or alpha or theta or delta. These frequencies are associated with different states of consciousness. And so what that means is if I'm managing my mind effectively enough, I can keep my brain waves functioning in at least an alpha state, if not even a deeper alpha theta state, where true, deep, core, ancient wisdom can rise to my awareness. So I, as a conscious being, want to learn to manage my mind so that it will release its overactivity and allow my brain waves to measure at alpha frequency. Because if my brain waves are coming into true nature, then I'm aligning with connectedness. When my brain waves go up into beta or gamma and I'm not embodied and integrated in my system fully, I'm going to get into story writing and I'm going to get into paranoia and I'm going to get into, the conspiracy realm in an unhealthy way instead of just, questioning and asking everybody to show up transparently. It's a different thing. I get out of control And when I get out of control, I get afraid even more. And when I get afraid, I get more out of control. And the more out of control I am, the more afraid I get. And the next thing you know, we're pumping chemicals into the body that is saying, no holds barred, we're in full blown battle zone here. Let's put up the fight or flight. Let's get the chemistries running and the adrenaline pumping so that we can win this battle. And all the while, we're making it up. We're inventing things to be upset about. And we're bouncing off of each other's attempts to awaken. So by understanding that we can manage our mind in a way that allows it to disengage as the driving force in our life, and train the mind to become observant of the soulful self by bringing the mind onto the body and noticing, how am I feeling in my body? Am I uptight? Am I open? Am I breathing vastness in my body? Am I able to breathe in a more spacious way today than I could a week ago? Next week, will I be more spacious than I am right now because I'm interested in devoting myself to opening the system and allowing the universe to pour through? That is consciousness having its way, truly, in an uninterrupted fashion. But when we land here, we splat and we disperse, and the mind and the body and the breath all separate out. And in that separation, we get identified with the mind, and we start reeling, trying to fill in the blanks and understand, our level of safety and how to control circumstances and situations and people so that we feel safe. Oh my God, it's so painful. It's so painful. And we don't have to do that. You were consciousness long before you were a body, long before you built a body, long before you developed a mind that took off on its own. Way back behind all of that, you are pure consciousness. And what we have to do is get the mind and the body and the breath working back together so that the mind can listen to the body and serve the language of the soul that is speaking through the body to the mind. And as the mind slows down into alpha frequency or even into alpha theta, what happens is we drop into awareness, and the great observer rises. And we become super connected with this whole continuum that we are. And in that connection, the deep ancient wisdom rises. And we know that we're okay. And we know that we've been through this lots and lots of times. And humanity is just going another round at it right now. And it looks like the times are crazy. But actually all that's happening is we're birthing ourselves into a deeper state of consciousness. And so these brain states, they don't run the show. They're feedback. The brainwave idea of measuring is simply feedback on how I'm doing at managing my mind. And how I'm doing at managing my mind is a very good question. Because when you ask yourself the question, how am I doing at managing my mind? What I know is you're not identified as the mind if you're asking that question. You're something other than the mind if you're asking, how am I managing my mind? How am I managing my thoughts? How am I managing what goes on inside this invisible layer of me that could open me to the vastness of the heavens or could keep me confined in what I perceive as a living hell? And that's really what humanity is wrestling with right now. So consciousness is what you are. And the brain waves are feedback mechanism of showing you how you're doing at managing yourself as your true authentic self that has a mind, not one that's run by the mind. So people often ask, how does moving from a beta state of alertness and super lucid thinking to a more relaxed alpha state facilitate healing? And it's exactly the same way. It facilitates healing because when that soulful self rises, we are in the presence of the healer. When the soulful self, when consciousness, when the true self is on the rise and being honored by the mind, when we're paying attention to how we feel and we're honoring it by speaking into it or stopping doing what we're doing that causes us to not feel well, instead of getting caught up in the habits or the plan, what we have to do is say, I know I was going to do that, but thank you, no. It's really not aligning for me right now. And be willing to receive whatever feedback comes back to you by the person who is unaware and too afraid to let you do your own thing because they're not empowered to do their own thing just yet. And so they try to talk you into doing what they want to do. And that whole thing has been, plaguing humanity forever. We have to learn how to come in to ourselves and recognize that there's a version of me that I need to honor more than anything else. And when I do, it feels better. It feels empowering. I have more energy. I sleep better. I have more energy when I wake up. I can go all day without getting into the overthinking mode that happens when these brainwaves edge themselves up into beta and gamma without integration. Now, with integration and embodiment, which is what I love to teach people, what happens is we can move into those states and we become super conscious, and we become the clairvoyant, and we become able to sense and be precognitive, and we are operating in a state of creative genius because we're grounding those high vibrational frequencies in an integrated fashion. And so, let's think about it. When we understand all of this, how can it enhance our life? How can it really change us? There are practical ways that you can apply these insights, you bet. And as you do so, it enhances your life. So breathe deeper in your body. Breathe slower and lower in your body. Slow down your breath, because when you slow down the breath, you slow down your mind. And constantly ask yourself, where in my body is my mind going when I'm upset? When I'm upset about this, or I'm dreaming about that and it's not happening, where in my body does my mind go when I just take my attention to the body? Because where it goes, to the throat or to the heart or to the gut or what have you, is very significant. And if you want to bring your brain wave frequencies into the realm where healing and wholeness can be experienced, then we have to get to alpha frequency. Think about it this way. The body is alpha frequency on its own. Earth is alpha frequency. So if you bring your attention to nature or to your own body, the nature of that, it begins to bring you into that state. My preference, of course, is that you bring it into the deep inner workings of your own body, and that you allow that to be what brings you to alpha frequency, because you'll address two things at once. You'll start to animate mind and body relationship and allow the breath to birth a wedding between those two, to weave them together and not let them separate again, which keeps your mind in check, keeps it in alpha frequency, and it also enhances the deep core wisdom that is rising from within you all the time. So, wonder what brainwave pattern you're in. If you're tense, if you're filling in the blanks, if you're writing stories, if you're worst case scenarioing, I guarantee you're not in alpha frequency. If you're in appreciation and gratitude, if you're in wonder and awe, and you're breathing in the body and you feel yourself living on the inside of your system, the chances are you're moving your way to the brainwave frequencies that are most beneficial to you. And so, how do you align your consciousness with the universe? You make this quantum flip into realizing that you are consciousness itself. You are consciousness itself. You are never going away. You'll either be here or you'll be somewhere else, but you are never disappearing. And when you start to realize that, you actually start to look out into this life as if it is what it is, which is a project, an exercise in consciousness. It's an exercise in recognizing your role and what it is and what it is not that your mind is to be doing in any given moment. Still your mind, relax it, let it take a break. Let it pay attention to your breathing and to your body every once in a while. You'll break the patterns and the habits of living identified as the mind, and that, my friends, will change your life. So, I'm hoping that this is helpful for you. I look forward to our next time together. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this beautiful journey of living awake. Much love. We'll see you next time.